Hello and welcome everyone. My name is Chiranjit Mishra and today I'm going to present the news today news items for the date May 2nd. There are three main news and a few quick updates, and the place in the news today is Tanzania, an East African country. So let's quickly go through the news headlines. The first news is, after a long time, we got a theme for GS paper 1 mains, that is Buddhist diplomacy of India, and it's also closely related to GS paper 2 international relations. So important from the point of view of both GS paper 1 and 2. Microplastics, of course, GS paper 3 environment, and the third one is the 70th completion of 70 years of enforcement directorate. Okay, so these are the three main news. Now let's go through the quick updates. First one is Telangana, which has recently passed, and it became the fifth state to do so, a law related to gig workers, okay, in alignment with Code on Social Security 2020. Now the next quick update is about India remained on US IPR priority watch list, which is the 301 report, okay. Third one is about Bureau of Indian Standards, which has released 6 new accessibility standards related to assistive tools, or you can say simple machines like walking sticks, hearing aids. So their qualities have to be enhanced. The next one is about a stealth frigate, which is Mahendragiri of the Nilgiri class, okay, that is going to boost India's navy's capacity. Next, fragile 5 in the context of rupee fall. So India may become one of the fragile 5 countries, just like in 2013, if the rupee keeps falling. And then El Nino combined with warming affected climate patterns. So there is this phenomenon which has been in the news, which is called Super El Nino. That means El Nino, but the surface temperature of the Pacific, Eastern Pacific, is going to rise by more than 2 degrees Celsius from the average temperature. Next, India's critical mineral imports, which have been highly concentrated as regards the countries which export such minerals to India, like China, Chile, okay, or Australia. Last piece of news, Sikkim has become the first paperless judiciary state in India, okay, and the place in the news, as I said, is Tanzania. So let's start. Buddhism as a soft power, which is important from the point of view of GS paper 1 and 2. Now here we are not going to discuss the life of Lord Gautam Buddha or his achievements and his philosophy, the Ashtanga Marg, but UPSC has asked several questions related to Buddhism, but this question is about Buddhism as a tool or weapon of soft diplomacy which India can use. And sadly, India, despite being the land of Buddhism, has not been able to capitalize on this particular theme to promote tourism as much as China has done. So it's really sad. For example, if idli and dosa, which are from India, South India, and they are popularized by other countries like Indonesia, Malaysia, or Singapore because of the Indian ties, so how will we feel? Because these are Indian origin dishes and some other countries are popularizing those. Similarly, the Indian style tea or chole kulcha or anything, okay. So what are the reasons behind India's failure to use Buddhism as a soft power, and why China has done really well? Let's go through the key points. The most important, there is no dearth of good steps or measures or what exists on paper. Theoretically, we have done a lot. For example, Ministry of Tourism's Prasad scheme. There have been, thematic circuits. Thematic circuits hota kya hai? To promote certain circuits which connect important dots or places related to a particular personality. For example, Krishna circuit. Okay. Or Ram circuit. So these are the circuit related to various deities. There is also a Buddha circuit. So there is no dearth of vision. These are good schemes. That means if Buddhist tourists from abroad, they come to India, they, in one sweep, they can visit all the important places related to Lord Buddha. Okay. Similarly, if Vaishnavites from India or followers of Lord Krishna, they want to visit different places, or people from abroad, because ISKCON is very famous abroad. They come to India, then they want to visit all the places related to Lord Krishna. So for that we need proper infrastructure, because people will move from say Mathura to say some other incarnation of Lord Vishnu, say Puri. We need to have proper flight connection, Mathura to Puri, to save time, because foreign tourists don't have that much time. Okay, that means connectivity matters a lot. With regard to Buddhism, why India failed to promote Buddhism as a symbol of India is because, in a way, we can say we failed to harness his image in promoting tourism. Because soft diplomacy focuses on people to people ties. And tourism is one of the most important media to foster people to people ties. Okay, tourism, a medium to foster people to people ties. Just like yoga. Buddhism is already popular, but many people ascribe Buddhism to China or other Far East countries. Okay, many Hollywood actors, they also have their names after Buddhist philosophies or Buddhist concepts. For example, Uma or Karuna, these are very common names in the West. But why India is not appearing next to Buddhism? Why China? Okay, so that is the theme of this particular story. So now you can say it's more about using Buddhism as soft power and not the core philosophies of Buddhism or life of Gautam Buddha. Buddhism central to India's cultural diplomacy. Okay, and India can use Buddhism as a symbol to to reconnect with other countries from Southeast Asia, starting from Myanmar, where different variants of Buddhism are there. So starting from Theravada, okay, Myanmar, Thailand. Now India has solid ties, but China is trying to capitalize more on this concept. Okay, and you must have come across this term called Act East policy, which India came up with to foster its ties with the Far East countries or Southeast Asian nations. Okay, so Buddhism can act as a weapon for that. India hosts key sacred Buddhist geography, except Lord Buddha's birthplace, which is Lumbini in Nepal. Most of the other important sites associated with his life are in India. Okay, Lumbini is in Nepal, Indo-Nepal border roughly, the Terai region. Enlightenment occurred at Bodh Gaya in Bihar. Okay, so it's a good thing that Bihar's international airport, first international airport, was in Bodh Gaya. It's a good step. But similarly, we need to have airports at other places. And we'll also get to know that Kushinagar, which is in Uttar Pradesh, where Mahan Parinirvana took place, that means he passed away there. There was an airport constructed in 2021. Until 2023, there was regular flight connection. Now, no flights. So it's sad. That means steps were taken, but we failed to continue. We failed to continue. We could not continue. So Kushinagar is in Uttar Pradesh. So you can see, plan is there, but execution of plan has failed repeatedly. India holds 7 major Buddhist sites, includes Nalanda, again in Bihar, Shravasti, UP, Rajgir, Bihar, and Kapilvastu. Okay, so strong trans-Himalayan cultural linkages existed. Buddhist tourism forms major visitor base. There is nothing to understand. I hope you understood. Despite having so many historical sites, we are not able to capitalize on this concept of Buddhism. Challenges: India gets less than 1% tourism. Okay, so most of the tourists, they actually visit popular places like Taj Mahal or forts of Rajasthan. Okay, or sometimes to the south. Okay, so these existing places can also be equally made popular or popularized. Global Buddhist tourism largely untapped. Lack of integrated national branding strategy. There was one scheme called Prasad scheme under Ministry of Tourism, which I mentioned in the beginning. But no concrete action. The Krishna circuit is still very well organized, but the Buddhist circuit is not yet. Sites treated as isolated tourist locations. Yes. There are so many Buddhist and Jain sites also. So what about the Ajanta caves? Okay, in Maharashtra. Because Buddhism till early medieval times, its it had a good spread. But then in India, it started to gradually disappear. But we have historical sites. Nalanda revival faced delays in politics. Okay, Nalanda University. India lags behind China in initiatives. Now, China has several man-made caves related to Buddhism, which it is popularizing. The big Buddhist or Buddha statues. Okay, that is why people find it very appealing, and they always connect Buddha or Buddhism to China. And Nepal, the very birthplace of Gautam Buddha, is now considered to be a Hindu kingdom. Earlier it was a Hindu kingdom, now it is a democracy, but still it's associated with Hinduism, just like India. What are the measures need dedicated Buddhist development authority? Okay, it's a good point. For example, National Buddhism Promotion Council. It can be a nice body, you can suggest as a measure. Improve airport infrastructure like Gaya. We have in Kushinagar, but it is not functional anymore. You can cite it as a failure. Good step, but lack of improper execution. Develop high-speed Buddhist travel circuits. Introduce fast-track pilgrim visa systems for countries from Southeast Asia. Although India has this provision of visa on arrival, but it can be broadened. The base can be broadened. Promote Pali and Buddhist studies fellowships. It's a good step taken by the Indian government. Pali is now a classical language, which is the language associated with Buddhism. Counter China's growing Buddhist diplomacy influence. Okay, for that it can be promoted through films, documentaries. Okay, that India is the birthplace of Buddhism and not China. A very special question came in 2014 and 15. One of the very few instances in which UPSC directly repeated a question. Okay, very important. That's why I keep saying, keep taking PYQs. Okay, don't expect a question to be repeated as it was, but still there is a fair chance that themes can be repeated. And it was slightly debatable also. Which of the following kingdoms were associated with the life of the Buddha? So here you have to be very careful. UPSC, I don't know whether it was the intention of the UPSC to frame it like that or just by mistake, with the life of Buddha and not Buddhism. There's a difference, because Buddhism as a religion also grew after the death of Buddha. You know, Mahayana, Hinayana, they broke apart at the fourth Buddhist council, which was patronized by Kanishk. Okay, but Buddha passed away in 5th century BC. Life of Buddha, we have to focus on the life of Buddha till he was alive, not Buddhism. That is why the answer is Koshal and Magad, not Gandhara. This Buddhist school of art, it emerged much later. So two can be easily eliminated. Gandhara school of art, which was a mix of Indian traits and Greek traits. Similarly, now we have two options. Avanti, it was not direct relation with Buddha. Okay, although certain kingdoms were contemporaneous to Buddha, they had ties with Avanti. The only two kingdoms was Magadha, because Ajatashatru and Bimbisara, and Koshal. The Shakya clan in which Buddha was born was closely related to Koshal, Sravasti. So the correct answer is 3 and 4 only. That is what the UPSC gave. Now you may use some other logic to reach a better answer, or maybe the correct answer according to you something else, but UPSC's official answer key should C as the correct answer. Coming to microplastics from landfills. Microplastics are those plastics which are very small, not necessarily in micrometers, but less than 5 millimeters. The maximum size is 5 millimeters, and here we are talking about the diameter. Okay. For example, if we assume that the microplastic is spherical in shape, the diameter is 5 millimeter maximum. Usse zyada ho gaya to it's normal plastic, or you can say mega plastic. So this is microplastic. Okay, there is no classification called mega plastic. So microplastic has this official definition, less than 5 millimeters. So what happens? Landfills, you have plastic bottles, polythene, other poly bags. Under heat and pressure, these normal plastic materials, they start to disintegrate, and the products of disintegration are microplastics. Sometimes microplastics are produced through industrial processes. For example, your toothpaste contains microplastic, or some other material contains microplastics. So that is called primary microplastic. What is secondary microplastic? Which was earlier not or originally not microplastic, but it was produced as a result of the disintegration of big plastic materials. Okay, so let's go through and what steps have been taken by India and what more can be done, because microplastics are very difficult to detect. To detect, it's very difficult. Okay, because plastic waste can be easily detected, spotted, and can be put in a bin. But what about microplastics? Okay, it's not visible to the naked eye. And the most important thing that lies at the base of it is, despite having enough or adequate legislations, we don't have proper waste segregation. It is a problem everywhere. Recent context: CSIR, Council for Scientific and Industrial Research, and NERI is National Environmental Engineering Research Institute. It warned that India's decades-old garbage dumps are emerging as major sources of microplastic pollution. So you can say decade. Dumps are very old. That means to disintegrate a normal plastic bottle, it takes a lot of time. And what serve as a catalyst? Heat and sunlight. What if the plastic bottle is lying at the base of the dump? It will take some time for the sun rays to penetrate it. Gradually it will get heated, okay, and then it will slowly start producing microplastics. Okay. Microplastics are smaller than 5 millimeters, formed from breakdown of larger plastics. Okay, very important. Primary microplastics produced or manufactured for the first time. They were from the beginning microplastics, just like in toothpaste and other containers. A plastic bottle also may have some microplastics, very difficult to detect. But the same plastic bottle, for example, after shedding all the microplastics by some technique, now you have the whole plastic. That plastic material will also disintegrate. Okay, that will become secondary microplastics. What are the agents of spreading microplastic pollution? Landfill leachate spreads microplastics widely. Leaching means, coming out of the main source, just like minerals get leached. Seasonal winds carry plastics to new areas. They're so light they can easily travel in wind, just like pollens. Pollutes groundwater, soil, urban environments. They can easily permeate through uh, groundwater, and thus they can be carried away from its primary place to other distant places. Reaches coastal and marine ecosystems. Sometimes you dump plastic bottles directly into the sea or the sea water bodies, and sometimes they take the form of microplastics and travel to oceans and seas. Okay. Risks associated, not very difficult to guess. Reaches coastal and marine ecosystems. That's why plastic pollution is very prevalent in seas and oceans. Plastic pollution in seas and oceans. Threatens agriculture and food production systems. They can also be part of food chain. If you eat fish or any other living organism, say meat, chicken, that will also be transferred from the body of that meat to, the meat to your body. Okay, because it doesn't get disintegrated. Contaminates drinking water sources, disrupts food chains and ecosystem linked. Possesses risk to human health. This is a very generic term, but yeah, it can be harmful in a number of ways. Reasons: weak regulation of microplastic pollution, poor waste segregation practices persist. Despite societies framing rules, for example, modern societies, housing societies, people do not follow the rules strictly. There are penal provisions also, but who cares? Which is a bad thing to do. Municipal bodies lack funds and technology. Scientific waste processing remains limited. Okay, so all these are the roots of plastic pollution or microplastic pollution. Measures: some measures have been taken, even if not to directly target microplastics, but related measures. Solid waste management rules promote segregation. Okay. Plastic waste management rules encourage recycling. E-waste rules support responsible disposal practices. This is not directly related. This is broadly related to overall waste management. Okay, e-waste means electronic waste. Extended producer responsibility. So this is mostly for e-waste and other thing. How will No doubt, such a provision is very good, EPR. So whoever produces or manufactures plastic should be responsible for its end of life phase. जब वो खत्म हो रहा हो, whoever manufactured it should be held responsible to dispose it or to make such products which can be easily disposable. Okay, they cannot create environmental hazards. That means the burden lies on the shoulder of the manufacturer. Single-use plastic ban implemented in 2022, but you can see polybags everywhere in many shops. That means proper legislations are there, but implementation is lacking. So that's all about this news. Next is ED, Enforcement Directorate, which has completed its 70 years. Okay, that means it was established in 1956. And ED, although it has power under the FEMA Act, which replaced the FAIR Act, Foreign Exchange Management Act 1999. Strictly, it gives a lot of power to ED and the RBI. RBI makes rules under FEMA regulations. Okay, how foreign currencies can be traded in or carried or held. ED looks after the violators. It takes care of the violators, those who violate the provisions of FEMA or get involved in money laundering. Okay, so ED derives its power from FEMA, the most important law. There are 3 laws. Then there is Prevention of Money Laundering Act, and then is Fugitive Related Act 2018. Okay, so FEMA says that there should be a Directorate of Enforcement. But if you visit this website of ED, you'll see nowhere it's mentioned that it's a statutory body. So many people think and assume that it is not a statutory body. Okay, but in one of the High Court cases, I think Kerala High Court, if I'm not wrong, it said that ED, because of its nature and its authorities and powers that have been assigned to ED, it can be regarded as a statutory body. But again, you have to be very cautious, because most of the sources, including ED's website, they say they don't mention explicitly that ED is a statutory body. It was not formed under any act, because FEMA Act came into being in 1999. And ED has been existing before that. And the officials, for example, the director of ED is also appointed by the central government. Had it been a statutory body, then the parliament, other leader of opposition and other members could have taken some part. Okay, played a role. So ED is an executive body. Although Kerala High Court or one of the other High Courts, they mentioned that because it derives its power from FEMA, and FEMA Act clearly mentions the establishment of ED, so it's a statutory body. But be very careful. I would suggest that go for it, that it's an executive body, because the website does not mention anything at all. You can check it for yourself. So it has completed 70 years. Okay. Now assets attached in money laundering cases rose 23-fold between 2005-14 to 2014-24. Okay, 2 decades they have compared. 5 से 14, 14 से 24. And assets attached means if somebody is involved in money laundering, whatever part form whatever amount money or in kind, for example, there may be jewelry or some other assets, they are taken or seized by the ED. So that those seized items or assets which have been taken hold of by ED are called attached assets. That means the possession of such assets was illegal on the part of the miscreant or the accused, not miscreant, accused. Okay. Money laundering involves handling proceeds of crime. Process includes 3 stages of laundering funds. That means first you obtain it, then you kind of get it, transfer it to some other country, the step 2. Then it enters back the territory of India as something legal money. So that is called money laundering. Okay. Laundering means cleaning. Okay. So black money appears or becomes clean. Placement stage separates money from crime source. Layering stage disguises transaction trail through complexity. So that means this is the phase where money becomes hidden. Okay. Prosecution sanction required under section 197 of CRPC provisions. Now it has been replaced by BNSS. Okay. So how the prosecution can be carried out, there is detailed provision. Now govern under, yeah, BNSS. This is the 197 old act under criminal code of criminal procedure. Okay. Now we have Bharatiya Nagarik Suraksha Sanhita 2200, sorry, section 218 of BNSS. It details how the prosecution has to be carried. Limited number of special courts affects trial speed. Now see, the function of ED has been questioned, okay, especially by the opposition, that how the execution, the prosecution is carried out, and how the number of accused individuals is very high, but the conviction rate is not commensurate. But ED has clearly stated that its conviction rate is 93%. Please remember, this is as per ED, and you have to mention this figure, because they have said that number of trials that have been completed or concluded is something close to 43, okay, or 43, and out of that I think number of convicts is close to 40, okay. So as per that, it's 93% or above 90%. Okay, you can visit the website also. Special courts mainly located in metro and tier 1 cities. That means, and ED's way of acting and completing the prosecution, completing the process of investigation has been slightly tedious also, because the onus often lies on the accused, and sometimes there is also a conflict between ED and CBI, and also because it comes under Department of Revenue Intelligence, there can be other officials, for example NIA, okay, which functions under a different ministry, because ED primarily comes under the Ministry of Finance, okay, which will complete later. Earlier it was Department of Economic Affairs, now it is Department of Revenue Intelligence, okay. ED established in 1956 as Enforcement Unit, that was its earliest name. Initially functioned under Department of Economic Affairs, which is the body responsible for the publication of economic survey. Now it is under Department of Revenue, very important from the point of view of prelims, and Ministry of Finance. Headquarters are located in New Delhi. People often think that ED comes under Ministry of Home Affairs because it's an enforcement agency, but no, it comes under Ministry of Finance. Enforces Foreign Exchange Regulation Act 1973 provisions. Now it is no more there, replaced by FEMA, Foreign Exchange Management Act. Enforces Prevention of Money Laundering Act and Fugitive Economic Offenders Act. Those who are involved in financial frauds and they have left the country, okay. So these are the acts which empower ED. Now question for you, very easy. Directorate of Enforcement is a multidisciplinary organization, not a previous year question, just for you. And I think you can easily answer it. Ultimately, it comes under which ministry? Okay. So you can post your answers. The place in the news today is Tanzania. Okay. And Tanzania is an East African country. Its capital is Dodoma. And it shares border with 8 countries and many important water bodies. 8 countries, okay. The picture may appear slightly hazy, I guess. Okay, so this is Kenya, Uganda, Rwanda, Burundi. These are the countries: North, Mozambique, Malawi, Zambia, and Democratic Republic of Congo. These are the 8 countries. You don't need to remember. Nobody is going to ask this question, how many countries does, but it's okay to have some knowledge. This is something very important. The important lake, which is called your Lake Victoria, the largest freshwater body in Africa, okay, and the largest freshwater lake also, one of the largest freshwater lakes, and it shares border with Uganda, Kenya, and Tanzania. Okay, this question is very important. Lake Victoria shares border with how many countries? 3 countries only: Tanzania, Kenya, and Uganda. And the highest mountain peak in the whole of Africa, Kilimanjaro, is in Tanzania, 5,895 kilometers, and here lies Indian Ocean. Okay, and there are 2 other lakes Tanganyika, okay, this is the long lake, this one is Victoria, and this one is Malawi. There is also a country which is named after the lake. That much information is enough. So if somebody asks, now I don't think you're going to forget the fact that Tanzania is an East African country and it shares border with many of the East African countries. Two of them, Kenya and Mozambique. And the other countries are in the hinterland region, those who don't share any border with any of the two oceans, neither Indian nor Atlantic. Okay. Coming to the quick updates. The first one is about gig workers. Okay. So gig workers, for the first time, they have been defined under Code on Social Security. Okay. Earlier there was no definition. For example, all the Swiggy, Zomato, platform workers, gig workers. Okay. 2020. So definition is those workers who are employed under a framework which is outside the traditional employer and employee framework. The traditional outside the traditional employer and employee framework. Very important. That means earlier you used to go to an employment, I'm talking about 1980s or 90s or early 2000. There is an office, you go there, you work, okay. You finish your work, there is a contract between the employment and the employer and the employee. Okay, your physical presence is very much needed. Now there is freelancing. You can work from home. Okay, you are not, you don't have very deep contract to sign with your employer. Okay, you work on a contractual basis, or maybe the life of your employment is that of same as that of a project. As soon as your project is over, you're done with your employment. Okay, so this created a very volatile situation for the workers. Think about the Swiggy workers, the Zomato workers. Okay, because of this employment situation, okay, the Swiggy Zomato work was not there before 15 years or 20 years. So they started to face many numerous challenges. They could be easily hired and easily fired, and there was no social security. That is why the Code on Social Security provided some provisions for the central government and the state government. And today we are discussing this news because Telangana enacted a bill related to the social security of gig workers, and it has become the fifth Indian state to do so. Karnataka, Rajasthan, Bihar, and I think Maharashtra, they have already enacted such bills. New code on social security as per that. And sorry, so this definition you don't need to remember, it's as per section 2.35 subsection 35 of Code on Social Security. And the same code has other sections also, section 141, which talks about a social security fund, and this has to be established both by the center and the state, and the states. Okay, and the contributions will be from that of different sources. State can contribute to its own fund, state has to also contribute to the central fund, and some part of the turnover, minimum 1 and maximum 2, will come from the company. And also the penalties imposed on companies for meeting their CSR targets, those penalties paid by the companies will also be part of these funds. You don't need to remember all the nitty-gritty, but this much is enough. And section 6 says that there has to be a national social security board, which will be at the central level, and similar boards have to be established at the state level. So this act will establish a welfare board, social security board, and funds. Next is special 301 report. This is important from the point of view of prelims mostly. They can ask you what is special 301 report related to. This is released by a body in the United States which lists down countries which have strong IPR regime and which have very suspicious or not very private players supporting IPR regime. So India has always been in the watch list of the United States when it comes to protection of intellectual property rights. For example, India is a country which promotes innovation, but there are many poor and middle class people in this country. And you know what companies try to do? Companies innovate and then they try to protect their innovations by not letting that formula or that recipe known to their competitors. So they have the sole monopoly of something very special. And when there is monopoly, there will be price rise. So Indian government is a not very strict follower of IPR regime, taking into consideration the many poor people existing in India, and public welfare. So there is a balance between innovation and public welfare. India has always been compliant with the provisions of TRIPS, no doubt in that. But US is not happy because US is a capitalist country. And in India, as per our DPSP, we are a welfare economy or a welfare society, where it's the responsibility of the state to take care of the poor people. And if a company has a patent and it keeps evergreening its patent, that means the product can only be sold by that company, especially pharmaceutical companies, okay? Pharmaceutical, drug making companies. That means the price of medicines, important medicines, life-saving drugs will remain always high, okay? So India does not allow evergreening of patent. होता क्या नहीं evergreening में? I am a drug manufacturer. I come up with a formula. So my patent has the expiry date of it will exist for the next 20 years. As soon as 20 years are over, I'll say, okay, now I'm going to lose my patent. What can I do? I can tweak my product. I will tweak my product without making any substantial changes. I'll say, this is a new product. I want it patented for the next time. The government has said, unless and until there is a substantial increase in the therapeutic efficacy, important term, the patent cannot be renewed. Okay? That is why India is on priority watch list. Ever since 1990s, no legal impact, कोई legal है नहीं, it's not going to directly impact trade also. But the US always tries to keep close watch on all the trade related developments, concerns patents, enforcement and market access. That is why many companies they fear to innovate here in India. Okay? Which is not a bad thing because India is a welfare economy. You need to remember that. If ever somebody asks you in your interview, BIS has released 6 new standards. BIS is the central standard setting body of India, which comes under the Ministry of Consumer Affairs, and it is a statutory body. It was formed in 1987 under a different act, but now it's called Consumer Protection Act 2016. Okay, so 6 medical assistive products it has released, like walking sticks, elbow crutches. They have to have certain standards, or hearing aids, because they are meant for specially able people and they have to meet certain standards, otherwise how the life will improve. Okay, that much is enough. And this is as per the national list of essential assistive products, but this list is not maintained by BIS. It is maintained by another body, which is ICMR, Indian Council of Medical Research. As per this list, your Bureau of Indian Standards has set standards. Okay. Next, India delivers indigenous stealth frigate Mahendragiri under Project 17A. Project 17A is a project which aims at creating stealth frigates, those warships which follow the main ships. They protect them. Stealth means secretly. And there are 7 different frigates, starting with the Nilgiri class. Okay, now it is Mahendragiri. So Nilgiri, all the Giri, whenever you see a name and it ends with Giri, you'll understand that it's stealth frigate. Udaygiri, Mahendragiri, like that. Okay. So built by Mazgaon Dock Shipbuilding in Maharashtra and features advanced stealth and combat systems, high level of indigenization. Okay, there is nothing more that you need to know. What is Project 17A? I think UPSC had asked this in 2016. Simple question. Project 17A क्या होता है? Manufacturing of stealth frigates. What are frigates? Nothing but ships which follow the important ships. It's like a protector of other ships. And stealth means because it cannot be easily detected, not even using very advanced radar. Okay. Rupee depreciation, and there is an important term which is called Fragile 5. It's a list of 5 countries including India, Indonesia. First you remember this. All the emerging markets, Brazil, Turkey and South Africa, or Turkey now, or South Africa. These economies which are very volatile because they meet their current account deficits by, it depends upon foreign currencies, especially dollar. Now when there is market instability because your economy is influenced by the comparative value of your currency with that of dollar. Why? Because they are dependent on dollar. Okay, they allow investments from abroad. Now those investments can be short-term investments or long-term investments. They can also be classified as FDI and FPI depending upon the extent of their ownership. Okay, and now if I am investing and I am removing my money from your country, and not just me, many people, for example, I'm from the US and I'm investing in India, and many people like me, they have invested in India. But then I try to gauge the market situation in India and also the global market uncertainties. I'll say, no, it's not safe to invest in India. Okay, I'll pull my money back. And if most of the people do so, that means my demand for rupee will fall, for dollar will rise. I'll get back my money in dollar. So that will further add to rupee depreciation. Okay. So this is one of the most important reasons, capital outflow. As a result of which India may become a fragile economy just like it was in 2013. So fragile 5 इन्हीं countries के बारे में है, and it happens when you are extremely dependent upon foreign capital. Super El Nino. Super El Nino is a phenomenon. As you know, El Nino is associated with East Pacific Ocean. Okay, East Pacific में होता क्या है? Here you have South America, here you have Australia, where you have India. Okay, so normally when sun rays fall close to the equator, okay, there is a lot of heating which takes place, and now this part gets heated and trade winds, they remove the hot air from this region towards Australia and India. This part is your Chile or Chile. So there is upwelling of water, and it is good for the fishery sector in Chile. And these warm moist air, they come here and then they start to fall in the form of precipitation. Here Australia and India receives a lot of rainfall. This is the normal cycle, what happens normally. But if the trade winds are slow or weak, the proper moisture or the hot air won't flow towards India. Okay, they will remain here and there will be extreme rainfall here. Here a high pressure region will create, and that is called El Nino due to weak trade winds. And super El Nino happens when there is an extreme rise in temperature, when El Nino effect becomes enhanced. Why? Because the trade winds have become so weak, okay, that, and normally it happens when the Pacific surface temperature rises by 2 degrees above the long-term average. So super El Ninos are El Ninos only. They're just enhanced or accentuated versions of El Nino. Same effect on Indian monsoon. Indian monsoon will become weak. And El Nino is a part of, you can say, ENSO, El Nino Southern Oscillation. Critical minerals imports remain very concentrated. And what are critical minerals? Those minerals which are important for India's economic growth, critical to India's economic growth, especially for the high growth sectors like energy, EV हो, okay, या फिर तुम्हारा हो गया artificial intelligence backed by semiconductors. Okay, you use silica, and silica is not the only thing that you use. In EV you use nickel, cobalt, okay, copper, and primarily lithium. India imports all these important minerals from 2-3 countries, mostly China, but now India has become very wary that China is not a trustworthy partner. That is why now the largest critical mineral supplier is Chile, and primarily because of copper, because Chile has the largest reserves of copper. Okay, तो यहाँ से ये India import करता है. So we cannot depend upon a few countries. Why? Due to supply chain risks. If something happens in those countries, or as you know, China is a fearsome global trade partner, then India will suffer, because India's EV market is dependent upon 2-3 countries. That's why India needs to decentralize, okay, especially with regard to critical minerals. And there is a list of 30 to 30 plus minerals, okay, 30 to 30 plus. Even coking coal is a critical mineral, recently added to the list. Okay, so these are the countries from which India imports. Lithium from China plus Hong Kong is also part of China. Nickel from China and Indonesia. And Chile has emerged as the largest supplier due to copper, okay, linked to energy transition and EV sector. So the main mudda of this particular news is that India needs to decentralize its source countries. Okay, we cannot be dependent upon just China or just Chile. And this is a big lesson that we have learned from the Middle East crisis. Okay, we had already started sourcing oil from Russia. Okay, and we are also looking for trying to indigenously create fuels by mixing alcohol with petrol. The last piece of quick update, you just need to remember the title of the news. Sikkim becomes the first India's first state with a fully paperless judiciary. That means all the court proceedings, all the transcripts will not be noted down in paper or any notebook. Everything has been everything will be electronic. That means E. So this is part of the e-courts mission of the Supreme Court. And you just UPSC may ask simply, which of the following states recently became the first state to make court proceedings absolutely electronic? It's Sikkim. Sikkim is also the first organic state of India. Okay, it's a small state, very easy to manage, but it can serve as a role model for other states. So that's it from today's digital current affairs. Keep studying hard for UPSC CSE Prelims 2026 and try to make the most of Vision as digital current affairs. Okay, wish you all the very best. Take care.